Hey guys, so here I'm showing you a logo that a friend sent in. She was having trouble with her cut lines on this. It's a PNG. You can see here that there's no background, but the issue she's having is that around these letters there is white, and when she goes to cut, she's putting this on a black hoodie. She doesn't want white around the stroke on these letters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this background with a color so you can see what I mean. I'm going to drag this layer under the logo so you can get a better view. So I'm going to zoom into 900 here to show you what I mean whenever I tell you that she's getting white. So if you see here, there's some pixels around areas of the letters that whenever she does a selection of this, she's getting her cut line around these areas, and that's not what she wants. So the solution that I found, or the best solution that I can come up with, is to isolate the letters and the car on different layers, and that's what I'm going to do. So first of all, I'm just going to duplicate the art layer in case I mess up here or I don't like something, and I'm going to rename that art layer. And then I'm just going to turn it off and lock it, just so that I know that I have that there if I need to go back. Then I'm going to duplicate this layer and turn that off and turn off the colored layer. So here I'm going to do select and load selection and press OK. So you get everything selected, everything is selected. What I'm going to do is click on the polygon lasso tool and make sure that the subtract from selection is clicked. So it's this icon up here at the top. And then I'm going to go around with the lasso and select all the letters, the tires. Because I want to isolate the car from this. So now there's no selection around that anymore. I can go down here to this square with the circle inside. It's add layer mask. So I can click that, and then now I have the car on one layer. So now on this layer, I'm going to right click and apply the layer mask. And I'm going to rename this car. Now I'm going to turn that off and turn on this other layer that we did. And I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to just select text. So load the selection, press OK. Polygon lasso is on, as well as subtract from selection. So this time I'm going to select the car and remove it out of the selection. Okay, so then I'm going to do another layer mask, and now that's gone. And right click. Okay, when you right click, make sure you're right clicking on the actual little box that has the white, and then click apply layer mask. So now this is going to be changed to words. And then now that we're here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to select, load selection, press OK, and then go back up to select, modify, and contract. So here when I contract, I'm going to show you what it does. So say that I want to contract 15, right? You're going to see that the selection line is going to jump inward. You see that there? So if I wanted to crop this, or do like a layer mask, what I mean, I could do that, and I could hide all that that's outside of this selection now. But this is too dramatic. This is just to show you. I'm going to do a smaller internal cut. So I'm going to do Control Z to undo that, and then go back up to select and modify, and then contract it. So I'm going to contract it by 4 and press OK. So you see it's not too dramatic, but it's enough to get a lot of the black out. And I'm going to go back in and I'm going to do this a little more. So I'm going to go to select, modify, contract, and I'm going to do it by 6 and press OK. So now you see that I got a lot of the black out, and then I'll jump back out so you can see what I got going on. And I'm going to go here to the layer mask and add a layer mask. So you see that it went away. And then I will apply that layer mask, and I'm going to add a stroke of black, just like that, to kind of get that same effect that she had before without having the white around the letters. And here, if you wanted to make a thicker stroke, you could. So I'm just going to do it like that and press OK. So now you can see that we have that there. And then if we want to flatten this, or I'm sorry, rasterize the layer style, then we can do our selection of this now. Load selection, press OK. And then we could get our bleeding cut line for this. So we would go to make a new layer here above the one we're currently on, and then go to edit and fill it with black. So this will give you your cut lines whenever you go into Illustrator with it, okay? And then we're going to duplicate this layer. So I'm going to name this cut line and press OK. And then I'm going to duplicate this layer. And this is going to be our bleed for this. So we're going to name it bleed, because we're still going to want to have a bleed around this when we go to cut. So I'm just going to turn off these other layers so I'm not affecting them. Go up to select and modify. Okay, select, load selection, and then modify it, okay? So modify and expand this. We can do 7. And you see the selection jumps out. That's going to give us extra black around these letters so that if our cut line is crooked, it's still cutting into black and not white. Okay, so now that is done, and you'll see if I turn it off, that's just extra around there. Okay, so we're done working with these layers. Now we're going to work on the car layer. So the car is not too hard. Hi, baby. So when we work on the car layer, all we're going to do is the same thing. We're going to do a selection and contract it just by a little bit. So we'll contract it by maybe 4 here. Press OK. And then mask it as well. Apply this layer mask. And then duplicate this. Select, load selection, OK. And then we will expand this by 7. So the only reason I'm doing that is because around the gray, there was also some of those white pixels. So this is just going to give us a cleaner cut of that. And this black here is going to be our bleed. This will go under the car, and we will change the color of that in Illustrator to match the color of the car layer. Mm-hmm. Sí. Okay, so this one here is going to be the cut line. Okay, so you have your cut line, you have the car color, we have the bleed, then we have the cut line. This will be our cut line for the words. We have the actual words under there, and then we have a bleed. And that's basically it here. We're going to take this to Illustrator now, and we'll continue the work there. So this is going to be saved as a PSD file, by the way. Now when we get to Illustrator, you go to File and Open. Make sure that you have these two boxes selected. Press OK. Once you're here, make sure that you have your Layers panel open. If you don't see it, go to Window and Layers, and it'll come up just like this. So now that we're in here, we're going to turn off some of these layers so we don't get confused. The original image layers we don't need on. And as a matter of fact, we're going to turn off a lot of these just so we can work on one at a time. So with these bleed layers, you don't necessarily have to create them into image trace unless you're going to change the color. So we won't do it in this case because the black around the letters is the same black that we made in that bleed. So what we're going to do is we're just going to work with the cut line. So here we're going to select everything, go to image trace here and go to silhouette and click expand up here, and then come here and flip this the fill and the stroke, and then I click up here and add my swatch. But since I don't have my rolling swatches, I always do this manually, and it's simple. If you want to do it this way too, you would just name the stroke cut contour, and the capital on the C's is very important. Make sure that you have capital C's in here because that's how the VersaWorks recognizes it. So as you see, both of the C's are capital. The color type is a spot color. The color mode is CMYK. The values for magenta is 100 and everything else is 0. The stroke weight, I always bring it down to 0.25. So that's your cut line. This is your bleed. If you look closer, you'll see that it's inside of that black. And then here's the original art for the wording. So this part is done. I'm going to turn those off for now. And then we're going to work on the car. So here's the car. Here's the bleed, which I'm going to turn the same color. And then this black is what I'm going to turn into the cut line. So here you're going to see me turn the bleed into, I'm going to do an image trace on the bleed so I can change the color of it. So the way you would do that is, Control Z will undo that. So it's highlighted. I'm going to go up here to image trace, turn it into a silhouette. And then now that it's a silhouette, I can expand it. Turn on the car image and unlock that. And then on the bleed image, this little circle right here, I can click that and I'll be able to change the fill color now. So to change the fill, I'm gonna click on the eyedropper tool and click this gray because that's the color that I want it to match. So now they're both matching. So you'll be able to see that if I turn it off, the selection is smaller. Okay, so I'm going to lock that. I'm going to lock the car image, and I'm going to turn on the top one, which is black, and then do a selection of that. Go to silhouette again, expand it, and since we already have the swatch in here this time, when I flip this and I go up here, I'll just be able to select that the cut line and bring it down to the right size. So now we have the cut line for the car. We have the original color, and as you can see, it doesn't quite match, but since we added that that bleed, now we're going to have a nice clean cut there. We have the cut line for the letters. We have the letters, and then we have a bleed to go around those letters as well. And then I just have this background, which is not necessary anymore, but it's just there so you can see that it looks cleaner. And I'm going to turn that back off. Everything else can stay on. We don't need any of this stuff locked anymore. We can unlock everything. You can delete some of these extra layers if they're confusing, but this is as far as we need to go here.